My name's Dodger the Dog and I'm from the CBBS house.
They don't care. And I'm Hacker the Dog from the CBBC studio. They care less.
See, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Just our friends care, that's all.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, I don't know why we're here because I don't even like puppets.
They're weird, aren't they?
They're strange. Those people put their hands inside them.
And they're mostly blokes and weird, aren't they?
It looks painful.
Yeah. Especially if you leave your watch on.
Yeah. Scratches.
A watchdog.
What's that noise?
Yeah.
Time.
It's nice, this exciting television. Are you enjoying this, everyone? Yeah. Have you enjoyed the fact that it's overran? Did you enjoy the fact that the light wouldn't go off during Fraggle Rock? Did you?
I was furious.
You always live in Fulton Mackay's changed, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's like Benjamin Button, he's just getting younger and younger.
Got a bit quiet.
Anyway, we're Hacker and Dodge, and we are puppets, and we'd now like to introduce you to Neil Sterenberg.
That's our dad!
He's our dad.
Daddy! Neil!
Sculpted using a plaster mould, and then they're cast in rubber latex. Colding was actually quite complicated because he had a cable-controlled mechanism that would drive he had a bending and he had his mouth movement, so he was actually quite a complicated character to build. So that's the design, therefore, would make you make certain choices in what materials you might use or what process you might go through. So that's a latex puppet. The spitting image puppet, the Queen, that Louise performs, they're an incredibly complicated process to make. I mean, they're made out of foam latex. They've got to have a caricature artist do the caricature, and they've got to be cast, moulded, painted, costumed. There's so much work involved in these little things. In Hacker and Dodger, there's probably about 30 or 40 individual pieces that all go together in the understructure, and then there's more pieces to cover him. So they're an awful lot of work. This is one of Phil Fletcher is also an excellent puppet maker.
Oh, thanks,
you know. But I don't know what more to say.
Well, I was thinking about the snipped foam puppet.
Yeah, so this puppet is made out of snipped foam. But there's just so many techniques that you can use. And being a puppet maker, you have to know an awful lot of techniques. It's kind of a jack of all trades, but a master of one. So you have to kind of know about what foam does. You need to know how to dye foam. You need to know about fur. You need to know a little bit about costume making. You know, so you have to know an awful lot about a lot of things to create a puppet. They're clever little things.
Thank you.
Practically, they have to be light. If you're going to spend 10 hours a day with a puppet above your head, you don't want it to weigh incredibly heavy. And the nice thing about Hacker and Dodger and these kinds of puppets is that they're made out of foam, so they are quite light. But when we're working on something like the Dark Crystal, which we've worked on, the puppets weigh an absolute ton, because the puppet I do on Dark Crystal, Rian, he's got a whole animatronic head, so he has moving ears, moving eyes. That's all on a fiberglass skull. And then you've got a leather costume, foam, and sometimes he would wear armour, which was all made out of leather. So they weigh an awful lot, but they do an awful lot more than these puppets do. So there's a whole sliding scale involved in puppet making.
And maybe that brings us to the next thing. We're going to bring up Dave Chapman.
Oh, now.
In the house.
Just down.
Oh, now. Just down. Dave's going to tell us about all different types of puppets.
Okay, I am.
A very quick list.
Warwick, so a very quick list. Very quick.
No, don't fall over that.
Don't fall over that. I won't fall over that. My thing, Warwick asked me to talk about was the way that we still use puppets with traditional puppet methodology. So bunraku, which is Japanese art form, which is rodded from behind. So we have like 5 or 6 puppeteers around a character, and say one puppeteer will be on an elbow rod and an arm rod like this. And then somebody will be on a leg rod or a foot rod, somebody will have the back weight and the head and the neck. And so that was done in Labyrinth, the Fireys in Labyrinth, which is quite a famous sequence, which is done in that style. In those days, they didn't have the ability to remove people. So what we now have is this wonderful synergy between us and the digital artists, whereby we can kind of be right next to the puppet character. And every puppeteer wants to be as close as they can to the work. So bunraku gets used quite a lot now because you can just erase us. So you can do whatever you like, and you can have 16, 20 performers around a character. It doesn't matter, because all we do is in post-production, almost at the click of a mouse. It's not quite that easy, but it's got easier over the years, which means we can be more sophisticated, we can do more exciting things. But we still go back to this kind of stuff. Lots of small hand puppets, and Thra in the Dark Crystal are just hand puppets. They're just, they just nip through shot at the start of the frame, and it gives life to Thra, but it's nothing crazy sophisticated. A lot of people say it's an expensive show, it's a big show, it's very visual. Star Wars is very expensive and very visual, but we still use bits of monofilament, we still use marionettes, we still use rod, hand and glove puppets. This kind of stuff is not a million miles away from some of the stuff we do. It's just that we have foam latex monsters and creatures, but they're being performed in roughly the same way. And I guess that's kind of my bag now, is that fusion. So everything harks back to this, everything goes back to a person providing a personality or creating a character from nowhere, which obviously the lads have just been doing with the dogs. And then that can go into things that are as big as 16 people operations. The most we had on one of the Star Wars movies, I think, was 18 people on one character in one of the Rogue One, one of the spin-off movies. And we did a 16-foot marionette for the Solo movie. Now, again, it's easier now because, yes, the strings can be erased digitally, but equally you can have people on the tail, and they can be there, but you can remove them afterwards, thus the tail appears to move on its own. And so it's that synergy of the old art form and the modern way. But as a coda to all of that, because I've got to keep moving, is Frank Oz did The Last Jedi. He did Yoda, brought Yoda back in reality for the movie, as opposed to a digital composition of Yoda. And when he got called by Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm, she phoned him, a few years ago and said, we want to do Yoda again. And he said, on one condition. And she said, what? And he said that we do it like it's 1979. So that meant no animatronic remote controls. It meant everything was on cable control, which is the old-fashioned methodology. If you guys have seen any of the old puppets with bicycle cables coming out the back and levers. And he said, if we do it like that, it's organic and it will look like Yoda originally looked. And so that's interesting, that even though we still embrace the new technology and that helps us massively, there are also areas where if you're reproducing an old character, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's not go crazy sophisticated. Why? Let's do it exactly as we did it in '79. And many people commented on how that looked good. It looked like a puppet character, it looked real, it looked tangible, it looked like it was there on the day, and it didn't have a CGI face all singing or dancing, which is that fine line that Dark Crystal treads, which is the same thing. We could have done digital, and if you watch the making of the Dark Crystal, there's the camera test with digital gelfling and puppet sketches, and it's just weird. So everyone went, it's way cheaper, way easier. But when Netflix saw the test, they were like, we love the sketches, he's great, but the gelfling looks a bit weird because it's digital. And so therefore they went, how about we do it for real? Which is where we all walked in and went, okay, great. But it's complex beyond, when you see, if you do see the Dark Crystal, if you have an interest in that show, there's almost 10 hours of it, and we shot it in about 10 months. Usually we shoot a 2-hour feature film in 6 months. So, 2 hours in 6 months, and suddenly, 10 hours in 10 months. It's crazy, crazy busy. Every single frame needs to be thought about. Every time a puppet picks up a prop, we got to think about it. Every time someone hits someone falls over, someone jumps out of a window, because we're not humans. When you're shooting drama, stuntman will jump out a window, easy. Somebody will pick up a pint in a pub, easy. But as soon as we go through the scripts, myself and Warwick and Kevin is the other puppet captain, you go through the scripts and every page something's happening. Every page is like, how are we going to do that? There's just huge, great sophisticated sequences in that show, the likes of which have never been done before. And that's why myself and Louise and Warwick and Neil attracts us to the project, because you go, this is what we want to do, pushing the envelope of puppeteering and keeping the stuff that we're all in this room really passionate about, keeping that alive and making sure that producers and directors and stuff know there's an audience for that. And it's not old hand, it's not old fashioned, it'll never die, because it's just so much fun and you can do so many different extreme. You can have talking dogs,
You can cock it.
What else? So yeah, I want to move on because we want to demonstrate some stuff, is that all right?
Talk about the Road Puppets and the Lifetime Puppets.
Oh, you want to do that? You want to demonstrate? I want to do that.
They will all get on, yeah.
Okay, well, very basically, like Muppet puppets have, these are obviously rodded arms. I think Phil, you can do both, Phil. So Phil's assisting. Oh, what can happen, Warwick could have the left hand and Phil could assist and just do the right. That happens quite a lot, certainly on the Dark Crystal, certainly on the Muppet projects. And then sometimes when you do a complex thing, which Phil will show you now, like clapping or stuff that needs to have that symmetry, you have one person do it, because it works better. There you go, flying. If you try and fly or clap with someone else doing it, it's hard. But one person driving both arms like that is a really neat way of doing it. But, just as a footnote, if you watch a Muppet show with rolled puppets, and you've got 10 puppet characters on shot, that's 20 people that are working underneath. In the Dark Crystal, there's 3 people per Skeksis, so if you have 10 Skeksis, that's 30 people, and then 6 Gelfling walk in, that's 12 people, that's 42 people, and you've got 2 musicians on the balcony, that's 4 people, that's 40 puppeteers for one shot, and they're all working in synergy. Skeksis performers work in synergy like the boys were just now. You've got me as performing the Emperor, I'd have my hand here doing the head, my left hand, a smaller person in here, performer doing the right hand, and then you've got a remote control person over the other side of the studio watching a monitor who does the eyes.
It's got some live hand.
Live hand puppets, these are pretty straightforward. It means that you can pick things up. Live hand puppets are great at TV shows because it means you can actually pick up the glass, you can actually pick up the telephone.
Don't touch me.
So
I've had some cake from the island and the boat people. Very good.
I love the live
Too
hand
much
puppet.
fruit for my liking.
But if you imagine a minute ago when Phil had the Roddy puppet, that Roddy puppet picks up a phone, well, the phone rings, the puppet goes to the phone, cut camera, then you get some pins or some double-faced tape, stick the phone to his hand, roll camera, pick the phone up, and then when they're going to put it down again, put it down, cut camera, derig the hand, take it off, take the rod off. These guys can just pick up phones. So every time, live hands. You know, every time,
I
easy,
can pick
easy,
my
easy.
nose with ease, you see. I don't Very
There you
easy.
go.
Excuse me. Oh.
So those are live hands. Yeah, obviously. Do you want me to give me a bit puffing? We're all going to do something. I think Warwick's going to wanted us to just demonstrate how. Oh, you're kidding me. Lewis. You grabbed that puffin from the room. Warwick's in there somewhere. So what do you want? You want to show how we?
Just want to talk through it and then we'll do it for you.
No. Oh, yeah, I can do. Yeah. But the other thing that's interesting to look at is the footprint of what's going on the camera. Because this is quite straightforward because the lads are using 2 puppet characters or 1 puppet character. It's when you get into ensemble scenes or Muppet musical numbers. Louis has done that all day and all night. And obviously on Fraggle Rock, which Jocelyn created, is that thing of there's loads of people. As soon as a song happens, there's 6 people singing, or there's somebody foreground, there's other characters wandering through frame, and it just gets complex and busy. If you see the footprint here of the 3 guys, look at how much space they're taking up for these 3 tiny characters. You've got all this going on under frame, and it's done bumping into each other. It's done. Make sure you've got your looking at the lens. In this case, they're all looking at the lens, like in a TV show, talking to the viewer. You can see all the lads. Look at the lens, everybody. Everybody look at the lens. Now, so they're all looking at you, right? Wherever you are in the room, it looks like they're looking at you. Now make your eye lines go off, guys. Just a little bit, not massively, like a little bit. So now somehow that's not anywhere near as good as it. They look like they're drunk. But then go back on focus. Then they're all looking at you.
We are actually drunk.
It's like millimetre difference between something looking at you and addressing the camera. Like when Kermit addressed the audience at the start of the Muppet Show, just go off again. If he did it like that, it just looks weird. So there's tons and tons of power in that eye focus that the boys are showing you right there. Equally when they look at each other.
Oh, I wish there was a puffin here. It's in the room.
It's like it's
puffin
big.
puppet.
So yeah, and like if you walk around a bit, chaps, there's the same thing of.
Got me on.
So
got me on.
Oh yeah, you do it. That happens sometimes.
Wine.
Wait, pretend that didn't happen. Do it again. Okay. Rewind. Okay.
Lovely morning, isn't it, dear?
But you can see again what's going on the camera, what's going on the video, on the screen rather. But look at all the stuff that's happening underneath. The boys are making sure they don't walk into each other, they're checking the monitor, making sure their eyes are on focus, making sure the floor stays the same height so they don't shrink and grow, like the character doesn't suddenly become short when he's actually quite tall. Keeping your head out of shots, keeping your arm rods out, keeping your real hands. I worked at a puppeteer once at a baseball cap, and it said on it, "If you can see this, shout cut," which is good. But then, like when the sort of the height of them when they're walking on the floor, like there is a floor. Lots of puppeteers will, when they're first starting out, will just wobble about a lot, and they won't realise that there has to be a gravity, there has to be a solidity, there has to be a floor. I call it ringing the bell. That Muppet walk the guys are doing there is just kind of standard way of moving a Muppet around. So I'm not looking at you, I'm fascinated by puppets. I'm still like, wow, look at the amazing puppets. You do tend to get really transfixed by it. I was doing that upstairs, I ended up just watching that as opposed to watching anything else because they are easy to get lost in, which again is great, and that's why we're on the room today, because we like this stuff and we appreciate that bringing life to inanimate objects is fun and funny. And we're all in on the joke. Yeah, we're all in on the gag that this is not a real thing, but it's funny that it is doing weird things. And you can blow them up and you can stretch them and you can find them out candles and all that stuff. You do what?
Eat him.
This is a good trick, old school trick, which I guess it's a Jim and Frank trick, isn't it? So there's a little character in front of frame, and the big character thinks there's a bit of there's some food there. Do you want to do some talking?
No.
About puppets?
Yeah. We just did loads of those puppet walks, but we're going to show you different kinds of puppet walks. Dave's going to do a few funny puppet walks. Yes. There we go.
Oh, we should do that one with the last time.
Yeah.
I've never even had this guy.
So, like, for instance, on the Dark Crystal, we had to learn how to walk with puppets and not make it bouncy, like this.
Oh, sorry, yeah, because that's stuff the guys are doing.
It's fine and cartoony for these kind of characters, but on the Dark Crystal, it just looks crazy. So we had to, and Neil's the guy who perfected this, and then we all copied him. So it's the Neil.
Oh yeah, but I don't think it works with these guys.
You kind of have to waddle and really think about the gravity and the skeleton and where their little feet are going.
Oh, but it's not.
That does work.
Yeah, it does work. It does work with this guy. Yeah.
You have a puffin, Dave.
That's Neil Sternberg, copyright.
There's a puffin here. Do you?
Yeah, okay, I'll get him. Because it's better.
Dave normally only does this with a puffin, so.
No. It's because it's.
So there's that versus like the bouncy walk, but then we like the sassy walk.
Yeah, but I've only got one arm on this, so you've got to do something.
It's alright, you can still.
No, I can't.
Yeah, go.
No, this guy's different for that.
Okay.
Neil built this.
So there you go. Hi. Oh, hi everybody. There you go. And that's the other thing. You got to characterize your puppet. So when you see it, you got to look at it and think, what does that make me think of? You know, how would he talk? And somehow the man down there, he makes me talk like this. So there you are. Yeah, 2 hands. You want to do the other hand was? I can't pick anything up because I don't have hands. Don't do that. That makes me look weird. Honestly, there's my feet. Look at that. Look at my feet. Beautiful Neil Sternberg crafted feet. We never see them, but they're beautiful. What else you want? What else you want to do?
Well, I just really wanted you to do a sassy walk.
I can't do a sassy walk. I'm not that kind of puppet.
I'll do it. Here we go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The eyebrow. The eyebrow is a beautiful Neil Sternberg creation. Allows me to go. Yeah. There you go. What do you want to do?
Sassy walk.
With her?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's better work now after all this build up.
God. So you ain't kidding. You ain't got much to do.
Here we go. Applaud even if it doesn't work. Thank you for the pretty applause. Now what are we talking about?
I don't know. What else do you want to cover? What do they want to see?
What do you want to see? You want to see loads of puppets getting up and dancing. Just get people up. Lewis, Chris, Louise.
Oh, lots of people?
Come on. You guys. Yeah, we're just going to put some puppets up. So then you can see how loads of puppets work together.
The same as puppets.
No, it looks more, it's fun. Just come down.
More puppets.
More puppets. Puppets for everybody. Oh, that's worth. I can. Oh,
Lewis, Chris.
What you guys do?
Ronnie.
Just real quick.
Just really quickly, just something I thought to say about the droid in BB-8. In Star Wars, I do a character called BB-8 with another puppeteer, Brian Herring, and people sometimes say, how do you get character into a big metal sphere with a half sphere on top? And the answer is really simple. Use the same principles that you would with a puppet. So you just translate the stuff we're doing here into a metal robot. So for example, if a human being or a dog is confused, they often go, huh? Like that. So with a puppet, we'll go, huh? And then with a droid, you just get the head to go, huh? And it's the same thing, but it's just a different piece of kit. So that's kind of fun that you're using the same principles, but different media, you know?
Hold on. So let's talk about how we do it.
Oh, you go.
So often when we do these big musical numbers, there'll be lots of people lined up like this.
Yeah, we go.
And then the trick is that everybody does the same thing at the same time, which doesn't often happen. So everybody come up, everyone get in. Is everybody in?
Yeah.
So we're going to go right, left. So who's the little yellow guy? Come forward.
Yellow.
So...
Real right or frame right?
And this is the thing that happens is you can't see.
You can't see the picture
picture
anymore, obviously, because there's so many people in. So any classic Muppet, Sesame musical number, Fraggles too, they'll kind of do this. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
What we do?
They really get in sync. You know, if there was a beat to this, it would actually look quite pleasing.
But there's not.
But there's not. And then we'd have assistant puppeteers. So each puppeteer here would have his or her own assistant doing something like this. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There'd be 16 people down here trying to get this dance.
But on the Muppet Show, there weren't. We often had a hand pinned because there weren't that many people. So we didn't usually have assists.
Yeah, and I suppose also it was new back then, right? So
and you weren't born.
So we weren't born yet. So to create jobs for ourselves, we decided you have to have assistants. Yeah. So anything else?
No, really. Yeah, it feels like we're done. If they've got any questions about it.
If anybody's got any questions, we can take some questions. Anybody, put your hands up if you've got a question.
My hand's already up.
Obviously, we do. Very good.
Thank you.
It seems like a collaborative effort. So do you want to talk a little bit more about how you all work together and then initiate your roles within the crew and team?
Well, so we'd have a puppet captain. Dave and I were the assistant puppet captains on the Dark Crystal, which means that we would be the guys who would sit down, and we'd be the bosses. We sit down and we figure out who's going to be where, when, which person has the right skill set to do the assisting or the lead character. You know, we figure all of that out before people come in the room. Otherwise, it's just like a fight for who's going to do what. So that's how we figure it out. And then really the newer people would be the assistants, and that's how they learn the skill and you know, the etiquette on the studio floor and all that kind of thing. So, for instance, Lewis started with us as an intern. Come on.
Put your hand up.
Put your hands up. He started with us as an intern, and he's been working his way up. But we're going to get rid of him before he gets too good.
Do you mean in terms of a single character as well?
Yeah, and how you'd work together.
Because I think when you work with when several people have to work on a puppet, you have to all breathe together, and it takes a while for that symbiosis of everybody working together. You may be doing the eyes, you may be doing the lead, you may be doing the other hand, and it's very much like dance. And if you're dancing with each other, you have to feel how everybody goes. And then when that moment when everybody comes together and it's just a living, breathing thing, and you put it up and everybody knows what everybody's doing, that's when it becomes beautiful. And it's lovely to watch people dancing. Just as it's nice to see people performing a puppet as one. So it's collaborative in every way.
One of the most satisfying things for me was on Dark Crystal, and we were all helping each other and switching from leads, and just one character was getting dressed and I was doing an arm, and it was one of the most satisfying things to make it look like this was the character's arm. It wasn't somebody else, it was organic, and it was so pleasing to do and be part of.
Yeah, and there's that thing of like, you leave your ego at the door, because like Louise said, you might be doing a lead character in one scene, but then in the next you might be a blade of grass, or just the arm of a creature, or you might even be just the shirt that's been pulled onto the character. Any more questions? Yeah.
How do you avoid arm ache?
You don't.
Suffer.
Well, the only way to avoid the arm ache is to have the puppets not be heavy. Really. So Neil makes lots of really lovely light puppets, Phil makes lots of lovely light puppets. These are Neil's and Phil's, and nobody's aching.
But we do get physio. We get a lot of physio.
And we get physio, massages and stuff. You got a question?
Now my question is now, if you have some puppets now, I sort of... so, as they're all moving together, you could make it work better if you had a bigger screen.
That's a good idea. That's why you should be in charge. I'll give you a question and advice.
A very typical thing that the Muppet characters do is they do a little nod after they've said anything. Is that a specific thing that Henson taught?
Well, it kind of is. There was a thing that we did after the musical numbers, that when they finished, we'd all look around and acknowledge each other. And I don't know where that came from, but that was certainly at the end of the numbers, we'd all, yeah, that was great, yeah. I don't know where it came from, though.
And maybe because they were in a theatre, though. They were also doing it to the audience, were they?
I don't know. It may have been.
Well, that's not one.
We'll have to ask somebody who was there.
Yeah.
So that's us anyway. Oh, there's another question up there.
I'd just be interested in who are your kind of idols in the kind of...
Louise. Well, Louise is the original Muppet performer from the UK, so like we all got into it because we saw the Muppet Show and stuff, and she was there, so yeah.
Anyway, yeah, anyway, I mean,
And Ronnie too, because Ronnie's been doing Zippy for 20,000 years.
I've had a lot of work done. He's getting good now.
But like, you know, the originators are the people we look up to.
What's the most cracked up situation you've been in? This.
We've been Damien, please.
oh yeah, I've got. We've all been in really ridiculous situations inside washing machines, inside the bit of a car that should be where the engine is, and all that kind of stuff. You endlessly put yourself into very weird, backward positions that you just. That's why we have physio, because sometimes you are actually putting your, skeletal and muscular. You're putting it in all the wrong shape. So you have to have it redressed at the end of the day and make it good again. Otherwise, you're going to have injury. My personal worst was being inside I was on a fly wire on a fly harness, and I was 20 feet up in the air, and it's a huge snaky character in the solo movie. So it's like 16 foot long, and it's sculpted on me. So I'm like this, and it sculpts around me. So everything around me is so tight to my body because it's a skinny, snaky character. And there's no room even for a monitor in there. You wear video goggles because it's close profile to your face. And it starts in water, so you're in a wetsuit. So you go down into the water, and then you go up out of the water on a fly wire, and then start doing dialogue and performing a scene whilst flymen fly you, an assistant does your arms, where the control guy does your eyes and stuff. It's crazy, and you've been there for 90 minutes, 2 hours. Not a job for someone else, claustrophobic. No way. Anybody else got any other horror stories of being inside tight spaces?
Well, I was in a really tight space inside a puppet, and it kind of sent me a bit crazy, so now I'm really claustrophobic.
We had a brilliant one on the Muppet Show. We were in Grandma's feather bed with John Denver, and we were all underneath the set for hours and hours and hours. And and you're always like this with people, really, really tight. And Frank started grossing Richard out and deliberately saying bogies. I mean, just stupid, childish things. So we're all under the bed, nobody can get out, and Richard's going, stupid.
So our advice is don't get into this business. And that's Dave Chapman, Neil Sterenberg, Chris Kendall, Louise Gold, Phil Fletcher, Ronnie Drew, and Lewis and me. Thanks, guys.